On today's show, we continue to rank the top 25 players in the last 25 years for the Toronto Maple Leafs as we got to the top 5. You're listening to the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome into the Locked On Leafs podcast, a daily Maple Leafs-centric podcast hosted by myself, Mike DiStefano, and my co-host, Dave Morassutti. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Doesn't have to be a sporting event, a Leaf game, a Jays game. I used it the other day to go to the weekend concert in Toronto. It was fantastic. Got $20 off my tickets using the code LOCKEDONNHL. Maybe is Katy Perry coming to town? She seems to be in the news recently, especially when it comes to the canoodling with Canadians. You see this, Dave? Have you seen the latest?
It's so crazy. And I'm like, I'm so out of it when it comes to like celebrity news. I'm like,
yeah,
I thought she was in a relationship with Orlando Bloom. And it's like,
dude, I missed Orlando Bloom. Like last I heard, she was with who's the guy before?
oh,
Who's in
Russell
Get Him
Brand?
to the Greek? Russell Brand. Nah, I knew that they'd split, but I didn't know that she ended up like marrying Orlando Bloom after. Like, not my thing. I'm not TMZ, but that was all over my Twitter timeline today. All over. And it's a slow day in like the world of sports when I'm pretty sure Overdrive also kicked off their show talking about this. So just goes to show how slow things are right now. The Jays not doing too well either. Finally made a trade, picking up a nice reliever, but it's going downhill for the Blue Jays. 4 straight losses. So let's take the next 25 minutes or so and try and get people's minds off of the nonsense of what's happening, not only with Trudeau and Katy Perry. If you missed it, apparently Justin Trudeau and Katy Perry were seen canoodling or having dinner or something in Montreal earlier this week, which is kind of being front page news these days. And the Jays have lost 4 in a row. They've been outscored like 40-12 in those games. Hasn't been great. But it's a special day here on the Locked On Leafs podcast, Dave. We're finally finishing up our top 25 Maple Leafs of the last 25 years. We've gone through our lists we've done so far, players 25 through 6, and we've got our top 5 to finally finish off for today's show. So I'm pretty excited to get this underway. So let's not waste any more time, Dave. Let's get through it. Before we get to our 5, I suppose we should probably, for those who maybe have missed a couple episodes, go through the rest of the list of who we have at number 25 through to number 6. So go with your list first, and then I'll go with mine.
Yeah, so I got Joffrey Lupul, starting at number 25, then followed by Tyler Bozak, Jake McCabe, Zach Hyman, Jake Gardner, Dmitry Yuskevich, Darcy Tucker, Steve Thomas, James Van Riemsdyk, Frederick Anderson, Nazem Kadri, Ed Belfour, Gary Roberts, Brian McCabe, Phil the Thrill Kessel, Dion Phaneuf, Alexander McGillney, Thomas Caberlet, Morgan Riley, and then Curtis Joseph.
So my list, starting at 25, I had Nikolai Kulemin, followed by TJ Brody, Nick Antropov, Tyler Bozak, Jake McCabe, Zach Hyman, James Van Riemsdyk, Freddie Anderson, Ty Domi, Darcy Tucker, Dion Phaneuf, Ed Belfour, Nazem Kadri, Brian McCabe, Gary Roberts, Thomas Caberlet came in there, Alex McGillney, Morgan Riley, Phil the Thrill Kessel, and then Curtis Joseph. I also had as my 6th best Maple Leaf for the last 25 years. And just a reminder, when we were doing these lists, it's not necessarily done by points or done by popularity solely. Like we looked at a bunch of different factors, longevity, right? How long was the player a Maple Leaf? And, what type of production did they have while with the Maple Leafs? So a guy like Zach Hyman, who we both had ranked, outside of our top 20, it was for a reason. Like, it was because most of his career production came afterwards when he went to Edmonton. He was a good player in Toronto, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't the guy he is now. And some people I've seen commented, like, how do you not have Matthew Knies on the list? He's definitely one of the best players that's played over the last. Matthew Knies didn't meet the criteria. Both of us decided that a player had to be on the team for at least 3 years to be 3 full seasons, essentially, in order to be considered for this list. And he just didn't meet that criteria quite yet. Speaking of Matthew Knies, before we get into our list of players 5 through 1, our top 5 Maple Leafs the last 25 years, I saw there was a story that was written, I think it was on Maple Leafs Hot Stove, if I'm not mistaken. And they got some quotes from Matthew Knies saying that he would love to model his game after Mikko Rantanen. And I love to hear that, Dave, because if there's a player that the Maple Leafs would love to get their hands on or wanted to get their hands on at some point this season, it was Mikko Rantanen. But if they can groom Knies into that, boy, would that ever be a hell of a pickup and development for Toronto if Knies can turn into, even get close to what Rantanen has become.
Yeah, and I think I read a comment on somebody saying, like, Matthew Knies and Mikko Rantanen could have been teammates.
They could have been, correct. They could have been if Mitch Marner would have waived a no-trade clause, but that is neither here nor there. Or technically, also, Vegas and Carolina had to get something. They had to get something done with a they had to do it in a 3-way trade. But either way, it could have been. But it's interesting because I was looking at Rantanen's numbers, because in my head I'm thinking, yeah, that's actually a pretty good comp. Like, when you think about their body type and their play styles, like Matthew Knies and Mikko Rantanen, kind of similar, right? Like big wingers, play power forward type game. Like, you've got Mikko Rantanen coming in 6'4", 220 pounds. Matthew Knies 6'3", 225 pounds. So, like, very similar statures. For the two of them, both thick boys, both have learned to skate powerfully. And then you look at the numbers too, like their first 2 full seasons in the NHL. For the Avalanche, Mikko Rantanen had 20 goals, 38 points. And they had 29 goals in his second full season with the Avalanche. Matthew Knies had 15 goals, 35 points in his first season. And just like Rantanen, jumped to 29 goals in his sophomore year, 58 points, little less in the point production mark. I think Rantanen was 84 points in his second year, so a little bit more of an all-around player. But we look at the goal scoring, at least the production from a goal scoring perspective, and the way that they play, and the stature, the size, like physically how they are. It is a decent comparison. And if Matthew Knies can turn into that, which he wants to, that's the guy he wants to model his game after. Boy, the Maple Leafs have themselves a pretty quality pickup for a guy who signed for under $8 million per year.
Well, yeah, we always knew that deal was going to look pretty good as Matthew Knies matures more in his game, and kind of all the tools kind of all come together. Like, you bring up the Mikko Rantanen comparison, he also brings up Tom Wilson too, right? And like, you hear Tom Wilson, everyone kind of thinks of the guy who fights and has that physical element, but like, he's a true like power forward that if you ask any hockey fan, like, who's kind of that tough guy but also is like that, brings that power forward element, Tom Wilson lands pretty high on a lot of lists.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very similar player too. 6'4", 225, like pretty much the exact same makeup as Matthew Knies. Both play the wing position. I mean, he had a career year. Tom Wilson had 33 goals this season. I didn't realize he had scored that much, but I guess, the team was unbelievable. So I guess he was kind of a beneficiary of it playing up in the top six, but a career high 33 goals, 65 points for Tom Wilson. I do think we could see a little bit of a higher ceiling, maybe somewhere in between. Like a Mikko Rantanen and Tom Wilson would kind of be perfect for what Matthew Knies becomes, right? I think that's kind of what you're hoping for, right? Matthew Knies, maybe a perennial mid 30 goal scorer, 70 to 80 points a season. Maybe that's what he amounts to. And if that's the case, you're still pretty happy with that type of production from Matthew Knies. All right. I'm sure we'll get into a lot more Knies talk, in the coming weeks, kind of what we expect from him in his third season now that he's paid to be a big boy. There's a lot more pressure on him to perform, that's for sure. But we can get into all that in a little bit. Let's get to our top 5 list. They're coming up next. Dave, get ready because you're unveiling yours first. That's next here in the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. We've all been there, logging on early and waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. That's where Gametime comes in. Gametime makes getting to concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Price actually dropped the closer it gets to showtime. You can save up to 60% off with killer last-minute deals. If you're tired of endless scrolling, try to find the best deal. Gametime's Zone Deals picks the best seats for you. And if you ever wonder what your seat's going to look like, the app will show you a panoramic seat view, so there are no surprises. And with Gametime, the price you see is the price you pay with no hidden fees. You can take the guesswork out of buying concert tickets, show tickets, and also sporting event tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. The Locked On Leafs podcast continues. Mike DiStefano, Dave Morassutti with you as we are weekly here on the Locked On Leafs podcast every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday through the rest of the summer, bringing you the best and latest in Leafland. Not a whole lot of updates to go these days. It is the dog days of summer, but we have been unveiling our top 25 Maple Leafs the last 25 years over the course of the last few shows. So if you haven't seen the last couple shows, this is now the 5th installment of that series. Go and watch the 4 prior to see who we have ranked and why. But we're finishing up today with our top 5 Maple Leafs of the last 25 years. Dave, you have the floor. Give us your top 5.
Yes. So we're going to start with a former captain, current assistant captain, John Tavares.
I have a feeling that we're going to have the exact same top 5. There's maybe one wrinkle to it. One wrinkle that I think, because I thought there were 2 guys who were capable of being number 1. So I'm curious as to where you went with it. But outside of that, I think we have the exact same 5 people, and it's just going to matter who's up at the top. But John Tavares, I also had him at 5. Little preview. But explain why you got JT as the 5th best Leaf for the last 25 years.
Yeah, I mean, you think about when he was brought in, like the biggest free agent signing in Leafs history. Like biggest free agent signing in quite like, if we're being honest here, in like the last 25 years, he's
probably. Yeah, probably. I mean, right up there with, like, there's Panarin a couple years before, because Stamkos didn't make it, right? Nope. Stamkos never made it. And then Panarin, actually, may have been the year after. Might have been the year after.
Panarin was the year after.
Tavares, yeah.
JT was 2018, and I believe Panarin was 2019.
Yeah, so he was a massive pickup. Like, absolutely huge free agent pickup. And the Leafs, he wanted to come home, all right? And he came home, and he had a career year, his first season with Toronto at that.
Career in the first year in Toronto. Got the captaincy pretty much right off, almost right off the bat. I think he started off as the assistant, as we know. Then he did become the captain. You mentioned it, 47 goals in his first year, a pair of 80-point seasons, well and around point per game player in majority of the seasons with the Leafs except for one. And how can we all not forget the biggest goal that has been scored literally like since those playoff years to actually get this team to a second round?
Yeah, I think you can call it the biggest goal in the Cap era Maple Leafs at the very least.
I would totally agree. We all know my reaction to that one because it now lives on the internet forever.
Yeah.
Again, like I understand, like there are people who have had very mixed feelings about John Tavares. Many, I would say, love him, but there are people who felt like the contract, did he fully live up to his deal? They obviously didn't have, I think, the amount of success they were hoping to have, in this John Tavares era. But he's also one that, after he made his money and had a chance maybe to make more money, decided, I love this team too much to do that. And unlike some players throughout these last even 25 years, he's sticking with it. And not only sticking with it, but he's sticking with it at a much lower price than a lot of people said he was going to earn.
Yeah, I mean, he left money on the table. Like there was more money available for him out on the market when you look at what centers were paid in free agency this year, especially centers of his age. I mean, Brock Nelson's in a very similar position, and he ended up with what, $7 million is what he signed. I even think Duchesne signed for over $4.5 million, if I'm not mistaken, on a long-term deal. So, JT left some money on the table to come back and sign with the Maple Leafs. So it was a good contract for the Leafs. It's funny because I didn't necessarily include Tavares's pay cut in my reasoning for why he's top 5, but I think it does strengthen his top 5 stature because it's a guy who wanted to be a Maple Leaf. He came home, right? He came here for he came home, was kind of the first Leaf to decide, or Toronto kid, I want to go home, and reportedly took a pay cut the first time too. San Jose apparently was going to pay him a boatload of money, and he came home, and they gave him the captaincy, but then they took it back, and he still wanted to stay in Toronto. Still believed and wants to win and deliver a championship to this team. So Tavares, for me, absolutely is a top 5 Maple Leaf for the last 25 years. So I'm glad we both have him sitting here on this list. Who you got at number 4?
Number 4 is his line mate, the one who I would say ushered in the Shannon plan. Although the Shannon plan didn't really work out, but he was a part of it. William Nylander.
Yeah, Bill Nye, the wrist shot guy, Billy Styles, however many names you want to go. Willie Styles, Bill from Calgary. He's got a bunch of nicknames, and he's number 4 on both of our lists, actually.
Oh,
I told you, I think we got the same list. I think we do. I think we have the exact same list, the same 5 names at the very least. I think it's just dependent on how we go about the top 2. But Nylander for sure. How difficult was it to have between Nylander and Mitch for you? That's a question that I have.
There was a little bit because Nylander's legacy with the Leafs is not going to live on longer than Marner's. I just felt like Nylander didn't have. There was a lot of fanfare with his, arrival to Toronto. It took some time. There was a little bit of bounce around. Was he going to start with the Leafs? Was he going to start with the Marlies? Started in Europe. His path was very, very, very strange, to say the least. But it took some time for him to truly become that, elite player in Toronto. You have to remember, he didn't have his first 80+ point season until he was. I mean,
last year, wasn't it?
Well, when he was 25 in 2021 and 22. Right? It took him
a couple years ago. Yeah, you're
right. It took him almost.
I was a 40-goal season, but yeah.
Yeah, like it took 40 goal season was a few years ago, but like
Couple years ago.
like it took him a little bit of time to get there. But one thing we always could say about William Nylander, and people always point to, is like he's a guy that in the playoffs had, took him a little bit of time eventually when he was, thrusted into that, top role. He contributed. He and again, it wasn't like he was on the top line, but when he was in a top 6 role playing, earning those minutes, he was one of the few guys that was actually producing close to that point per game clip. One of the few guys in games, 5, 6, and 7, you can expect him to score. Last year, he was arguably the best. Actually, I would say he was the least best forward in the playoffs last year.
Well, the regular season also, you can make the argument he was the Maple Leafs best forward for majority of the season there. Like he came in at number 4 for me as well. Talking about a guy who's 9th all time in Maple Leaf scoring, 3rd among players who've played for the Leafs in the last 25 years, behind only Sundin and Austin Matthews. And same with points. He's 9th in all time for points for the Maple Leafs with 612 points in 685 games. I would imagine this year he passes Ron Ellis to jump into the top 8. And then it won't be long before he passes George Armstrong and Marner, who's now going to be stagnant there. He cracked the top 5 this year, but he's going to get booted down by both Matthews and Nylander at some point over the next year or two. So, yeah, Nylander for me, obviously, like you think back to what he's been known as a gamer in the playoffs and what he's been able to do the last 3 years to really elevate his game. I mean, back-to-back 40-goal seasons back in 22-23 and then 23-24. And then this season really ramped it up. 45 goals for William Nylander this year. Second in the league, like next to Leon Draisaitl. Like this guy, if Draisaitl didn't have the year he had, Nylander would have won. The Rocket Richard, funny enough. Like it's kind of incredible the season that Nylander ended up having for himself, and he's turned into quite the player. In terms of being a 200-foot all-around guy, I guess he's not quite that. 1 second here. Pick up where I left off. 1 second.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about his production too, right? Last year was his second best season in terms of even strength goals. 33 of the 45 goals he had last year were at even strength. He had, it was roughly the same he had a couple years ago when he had his first 40-goal season. But I would just say maybe the one thing we had hoped is that he would have been closer to that 100-point mark that he was, the year before when he did land that big contract extension. I think the one thing that's missing for me with Nylander, maybe what would have bumped him up a little bit, is we thought maybe this guy could be a center for this team, and he'd be that kind of, he was shift into the second line center role. They'd be kind of waiting for a little bit here, especially with JT, right? What could they do if JT couldn't play center? Oh yeah, well, you could put Nylander in that situation, and that he just hadn't had that yet. But he has bounced around with so many different line mates. 1 point thing, third line. Then he was playing second line. Didn't get on the top power play for sometimes. And it's just like, didn't matter. He just produced regardless. And and as we found out, he's probably he has the lowest maintenance of all the Leafs players. Because Craig Berube doesn't have to say much to him. Just lets him do his thing.
It's interesting. Like the give a bleep meter, I don't know if you want it, if you're happy it's so low or if you're upset it's so low. It's kind of interesting. I know Craig Berube said he's never met anyone like Willie in his life, someone who like cares so much but also so little at the same time about being great. Just goes out there and plays hockey. Like just goes out and plays hockey and plays at an exceptionally high level. For me, it was just like the kind of lack of defensive play that kept him outside the top 3, right? Like how often we talk about this guy, how he's a great offensive talent, but little to be desired on the defensive side of things and his off puck play. That's kind of why he settled in at number 4 for me as well. The top 3, though, Dave and I will unveil our top 3 coming up next here in the Locked On Leafs podcast. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. Mike DiStefano, Dave Morassutti with you as always. We're unveiling our top 25 Maple Leafs the last 25 years. We've already given you our players now 25 through 4, unveiling the final 5 of the list on today's podcast. And so far, we both have the exact same top 5. We both had Tavares as the 5th best Leaf for the last 25 years, Nylander as the 4th best Leaf. You got Mitch Marner as the 3rd best Leaf, Dave?
Mitch Marner is at number 3 for me.
Mine as well.
And it's hard. I don't think there's much of a discussion of where Marner honestly sits here. I know where people's thoughts are on Mitch Marner now that he is no longer Leaf, but we can't take away what he accomplished in Toronto. And many people have brought up, he should be known as the best Toronto-born player to play for the Leafs. And it's hard not to disagree with that. I was playing golf with someone last week, friend of mine, a fan of the show, and he said it's just he's sour about how everything went down, and he's kind of upset that of what this of this Leafs team going forward without Mitch Marner, and it's disappointing. But I think at this point, on a list like this, we just have to appreciate what Mitch Marner brought as a Leaf. Guy who, his game matured, I think, as the years went on as a Leaf, right? 90 plus points many times. He got to that 100 point. He got to that last year, and probably should have gotten to that earlier had it not been for injuries. Became a Selke finalist. He was a finalist for the Calder in his first year, right? Top 5 in that. I understand that the playoff production hadn't necessarily been there, but still has, I think I would call it respectable playoff contributions, just not enough for what, I think just a lot left on the bone is what I would probably say about him.
Well, the problem with Marner will always be not necessarily if you look at his it's funny because everyone always talks about his playoff stats and how he was terrible in the playoffs, and there's got to be some context to it because if you look at his soft stats, 63 points in 70 games isn't bad. Even this past year in the playoff, 13 points in 13 games, not bad, right? Couple years ago when they got through to the second round for the first time in 20 years, 14 points in 11 games, not bad. But the problem is when you look at and you break it down to the games that matter, that's when he fades, right? Games 4 through 7, those elimination games, that's where he has faded throughout his career. And that's why he has, the reputation that he has, right? The spinorama, no look, pizza up the middle that really ended the season for the Maple Leafs. That game 5, that was a killer, absolute killer in game 5. That one, just brutal stuff. And that was always kind of his calling card, sadly. I think he just wanted it too much, the opposite of Nylander. He wanted it too much. And, it sunk him sometimes. But obviously, you look at the guy. I mean, you look at how many games he played. 657 games in a Maple Leaf uniform, 741 points, which is more than any other current Maple Leaf, right? And again, you look at the Leafs over the course of the last 25 years, it's second to only Matt Sundin, who obviously leads all Maple Leafs all time in goal scoring. But Marner has more points than Austin Matthews, right? Matthews has the goals, but Marner has more overall points. He has more games played than Austin Matthews as well. So that's always kind of something that stuck to me. And Mitch Marner, the two-way play, the two-way ability, what he was able to do when Mitch Marner was on his game, to me, he was almost the team MVP. Like I'm not joking. I'm not being hyperbolic. When Mitch Marner was at his best, playing confident, and when he was able to just put the puck on a string and do whatever the hell he wanted, when he was shooting with some confidence, when he was just slinging it over to Matthews and just threading needles with his passes, when he was skating dynamic, when he was using his stick to be active to knock down passes, and he was in there on the forecheck. Like that is the Mitch Marner when he's back checking, forcing steals. That's the Mitch Marner that was a 2-time all NHLer, right? Twice. First team all-star, for right wingers in the NHL. And it's that two-way play that really, really made him such a star in this league. Like the 100 points is awesome, but to be a 100-point Selke candidate, that doesn't come around very often. That was special. That was special. Mitch Marner was a special player. And I've always said this, like I am in favor of him moving on. I do think that it's unfortunately, something had to change, and that was kind of the easiest way to get it with his contract being due. And, it didn't sound like he was willing to take a discount. Seemed way easier for Tavares to make that happen. Plus, sounded like one player wanted to return more than the other. But ultimately, he was a hell of a player, and he's going to be tough to he's going to be really tough to replace. That's for sure. And he won't be replaced by one guy, right? It's going to be 3-4 guys, right? It's going to have to be Michelli and Joshua. You're going to have to get, some other guys to step up like Knies, and maybe Nylander needs to step up a little bit more from a defensive perspective. Matthews, he stays healthy, gets back to his 50, 60 goal status. That could help alleviate the 100 points that walked out the door there. Max Domi certainly has to play a lot better. So it's going to be by committee. But yeah, when we're talking about best Maple Leafs the last 25 years, there's no doubt in my mind that Mitch Marner is solidly number 3 on this list.
Yeah. I don't think that. I think all the reasons you said, like he's definitely up there. It's just kind of just disappointing of how it all ended, but
yeah,
sometimes maybe more people will appreciate it when he's not here.
This is very interesting to see who you put at 1 and who you put at 2, because I firmly believe that it's a coin flip between the next 2 players on my list, who I presume are also the next 2 players on your list. Who do you have at number 2?
I have Matt Sundin.
You have Matt Sundin at number 2, which means you have Austin Matthews as the top Maple Leaf in the last 25 years. Buddy, we have the exact same top 5.
I knew that was going to be the case.
The exact same top 5. And I don't think you could really debate it a whole lot. Like, I think it's firmly Matthews, Sundin, Marner, Willie, Tavares. That is the top 5 Leafs the last 25 years. No one else can enter that conversation.
Tell me the top. I guarantee top 5 was the easiest for you to put together.
It was. Like right away, I'm like, here's my top 5. And then it was like, okay, this guy, should he go up here? All right, should he go? Yeah, for sure. But the top 5 was easy. Now, deciding between Sundin and Matthews was...
It took a second to debate that, for sure.
And so why ultimately did you go Matthews over Sundin? I want to know that.
Let's start with that first. The one thing that Austin Matthews will have that no other Leaf in most of the this time of the Leafs history, Matthews has had the distinction of saying, I was among the best players in the league as a Leaf.
Well, he's the only one in the last 25 years, which is what we're using as our parameters here to win an MVP.
Win an MVP, win the
Ted Lindsay.
The Ted Lindsay.
Multi-time Rocket Richard winner. Multiple
Calder Trophy, like you name it. Like he has won those individual awards. I totally understand that Matt Sundin has had more playoff success, I get it. He's been to the conference finals. That's not enough for me to put Matt Sundin over Austin Matthews. The one thing I will say about Matt Sundin, he was the consistent leader. You knew what you were getting from Matt Sundin each and every night. He showed up. I like that. I will never ever. You can never take from Matt Sundin. And actually, funny enough, he was the second player in history to win the Mark Messier Leadership Award. So that's something he can obviously take, and that's something obviously put on his resume too. It's just Austin Matthews brought that extra brings that extra cachet. I remember where I was the night that the Leafs won the draft lottery to get Austin Matthews. How big that moment was for this franchise. Without Austin Matthews, yes, they had Mitch Marner. Yes, they had William Nylander. But it was Austin Matthews. That was the franchise, right?
That was the final piece. Franchise player. That was the final piece of the rebuild where they said, all right, we got our franchise centerman. Let's rock.
Exactly. The tie, the tank, that god-awful 2015 season that Leafs team went through, that the fan base was put through, was all worth it to get an Austin Matthews. And where he has moved up on the Leafs list in terms of top, he's gonna be the Leafs best goal scorer when it's all said and done. He is
19 goals shy. He's 19 shy of Matt Sundin, who has a franchise record 420 goals with the Maple Leafs. Mm-hmm. Austin Matthews sitting at 401 in like 340 less games, I might add.
Exactly. Right.
Actually, I think 352 to be exact. 352 less games to get an extra 19 goals. Yeah, you look at it from goals per game perspective, Matthews is by far and away the greatest Leafs goal scorer of all time at 0.63 goals per game. Tavares is the next best Leaf in the last 25 years at 0.43. You have to get Sundin comes in at 17th on that list for goals per game. Points per game. Matthews, again, number one on that list, 1.156 goals per game. Marner comes in at 1.12 goals per game. Sundin, 8th, 1.006 points per game. So, on a per game basis, when you really extrapolate it, Austin Matthews is the number one producer for the Maple Leafs. And, he's here for another 3, possibly more years. Like, he could easily rewrite the record books and catch Sundin. He's certainly gonna do it for goals by the end of this year. But if he averages, how many points is he away?
I was just looking.
260 points away. So how many points would he need over the duration of the next 3 years of this contract to get to it? So 260 divided by 3.
He needs at least 90.
Yeah. So you get 87 points. You average 87 points a year for the next 3 seasons, and he will pass Matt Sundin in like 200 less games at that for all-time points. He's going to be the first Maple Leaf to reach 1,000 points in his career if he does that as well. I guess he would need to do more. He would need to get an additional 13 points past Sundin to actually get there, I suppose. But 86 points, that's very doable for this guy. He's done that in how many? 1, 2, 3 of the past 4 years. And the reason why I didn't do it this year is because he only played 67 games. Probably had a chance to get to that number. So
he would be. I think he'd be a lot closer considering the number of games he has missed throughout his career.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, he would 100%. Be top goal scorer. He'd already be at honestly, he'd probably be at 500 goals. Close to it.
No, it might be a little bit of a stretch, but Well, I guess technically you could just look at how many games he's missed because he averages 0.63 goals per game. How many games has he missed? And then you could just add to it. And I guess that's
also
the way
the
to find that
pandemic
out.
shortened year as well to that, where he had 41 goals in 52 games.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Like that pace probably would have had almost 70 in a full year.
And that too. Like Austin, the year he scored 69 goals, like last year when he scored 69 goals, like that was fun. Like that was awesome. His chase when he was chasing down Rick Vive, the first year he hit 60 goals, like that was unbelievable. His MVP season, like there wasn't a better time to be there. That was the biggest celebrated moment as a Leaf fan in like literally since pre-lockout, like since 03-04 when they beat the Ottawa Senators. Like that was probably the biggest celebration that the Maple Leafs had outside of winning the lottery, maybe for Matthews, was him beating Vive and then also scoring his 60th goal that year. En route to winning MVP, to Ted Lindsay, won everything that year. He was the best player on the planet, right? Best player on the planet that season. Can't say that about Sundin. Sundin was never the best player on the planet. Never. No. Never even close to being in that conversation. Matthews was for a couple of years, and he still is. Like when you think about players who can challenge greatness, like Austin Matthews, health might not let him get there, but he definitely has the pace to outscore Alex Ovechkin by the end of his career. Like when Ovi broke Gretzky's record, everyone said, well, how long is it going to last? Because there is one guy who's currently in the show who is on pace to do what Gretzky did or to do what Ovi did, and that's surpass him, and that it was Austin Matthews. Whether or not he will be able to do that, if his health can, keep him in games and doing that. Also, without Mitch Marner, it's gonna be interesting to see also like if his goal scoring goes down without Marner. That is a worthwhile conversation that we will certainly have over the course of the next couple of months, but before we get going on the season. But certainly to this point in his career, he's by far and away, well, not by far and away, but he's definitely, to me, has the edge over Matt Sundin and has been the best Maple Leaf that this organization has had, maybe ever, certainly in the last 25 years.
Yeah, I think, we think about the day Austin Matthews debuted in the NHL, all the fanfare, all the hype. What does the guy go and do? Oh, he just scores 4 goals in his first ever NHL game. No other player in history to ever do it. Like, do you remember? I just remember when he scored the hat trick, and it's like, holy smokes, what else can this guy do? Let me just pot a fourth one. Make Erik Karlsson,
who was a stud at that time.
Yeah,
like
pre Achilles injury.
Yeah,
Erik Karlsson looked like a pylon.
Made him look like Dion Phaneuf, Dave. Made him look like Jake Gardner, Dave. Made him look like Jeff Finger, Dave.
Oh, Jeff Finger, what a throwback.
That's we should do another list. Maybe not top 25, but like top 5 worst Leaf tenures of the last.
I can give you 10.
Years.
I can give me a top 10 list, and we can have a good therapy moment. We can have a good therapy.
Maybe that's on tap for next week. The worst experiences of the Maple Leafs, or worst, top 10 worst signings that the Leafs made over the course of the last 25 years. It's a work in progress, but it's definitely a listicle we can get to throughout the summer. But yeah, I'm not shocked. When you came out with Tavares at number 5, I thought the next 4 fit pretty seamlessly. I thought there was slight debate at 1, 2, but we both have the exact same top 5. Both have pretty well the same top 10 also.
Yeah.
I think I had, who did I have? I think
I had Kessel
Riley
in your top 10. I didn't have Kessel.
Yeah, I had Kessel. You had Dion. Those are the only 2 differences in our top 10, but the top 5, the exact same. Even ranking, with Austin Matthews being the top Leaf the last 25 years, followed by Matt Sundin, Mitch Marner, third best William Nylander comes in at number 4. John Tavares at number 5. So there it is. That's the list. That's our list from Dave and I. Top 25 Leafs of the last 25 years. Curious to hear your opinions. Who do we rank too high? Who do we rank too low? Who do we miss on the top 25 list? Let us know yours below. You can also reach out to us online on Instagram at Locked On Leafs. You can also find us on Twitter at Mickey_Canuck and at D_Morassutti at Locked On Leafs on Twitter as well. That'll do it for us here today on the podcast, though. I'd like to thank you all for listening and supporting the show. You can subscribe to the Locked On Leafs podcast on all platforms and receive daily Leafs content. We'll be back with another episode for you guys on Friday. Until then, keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.